morning, everybody. It is 7:24 p.m. Central Time, and I am on the air live with you today. My name is Dr. Lisa, and this is Happy Hour with Dr. Lisa. And I am just a little bit late. However, you guys have to forgive me for it. I get home later now, and so jumping on this podcast has to be between 7 and 7:30 now, which I think I mentioned in a previous podcast. So I will jump on. It'll just be a little bit later now. And I hope you guys are having a good day midweek. I know I've been having a good day, just long days, but definitely good ones. I appreciate you tuning in and sticking with me. We've been at this about a year now together, for those of you who've been with me since day one. And I am happy because we are still going strong. I am still writing my blog, so make sure you read those, especially if you have not read the blogs that correlate with the current podcast. So today's podcast is from Blog 54, which is called Demon Names. So if you haven't read that, go ahead and read that and then join this blog. And join this podcast. Hey, I rather beg forgiveness. It's late, just like all of you have been working all day. And this is live, so I'm going to blunder sometimes, although I try not to, but I'm not perfect. If you want to reach me, you can join me on this podcast live. You just show me that you want to come on live. It'll pop up and I'll click you on so our listeners can hear what you have to say. Or you can give me a call at 765-205-1959. Or you can email me at kidscansee@gmail.com. So a lot of you continuously talk to me on various websites and social media, and I appreciate that. And I welcome that kind of input and those questions from you. So thank you so much. I am so excited, which is kind of odd because I've been around so much grief lately from other people. So if you are just feeling sad or you have some other type of situations where you could use a little pick me up, I just wrote a blog about grief and loss and of our loved ones, and I'm hoping that will help some of you to kind of cope with some of the tears and the grief that you have right now. It has been around me. I don't know if I'm like a magnet for sad people right now, but I am definitely here for you. And a lot of you have reached out to express some of your sadness, which, hey, that's great because that means you trust me. So I like it. Thank you so much. But I do, want to make sure you all understand that this is not therapy and it definitely isn't free therapy. So, um, you have to be referred to therapists because that's not my goal in this. My goal with this podcast is what I've always done, to share with you all my experiences and working with so many children over the course of 20 plus years now who have the ability to see ghosts. Now, sometimes I veer off on the left from that because I get a lot of questions, and I'm actually going to write another blog about special education because most of you know that my master's degree is in school psych, and I've worked as a school psychologist for a very long time, off and on, in between clinical psych. And so there are a lot of questions that come in about school psych. So sometimes I go off and I'll answer just questions about psychology. So do not stop listening to me just because I do that. I have to do that sometimes just to educate other people and to make sure I'm giving you all what you want, as far as my listeners. So some people want that kind of information. Other people want information about, what they could do about their kids, which prompted me to write this blog called Angry Kids, which we talked about last week. We're going to finish that up real quick and then go straight into demon names. Now, here's the thing. I think it was last year For about a year, I kept running into very angry kids and also adults, but primarily kids because I work with kids. And I decided to write this blog again about angry kids based upon some parent requests to talk about angry children. And so I have to tell you, even most recently, a very recent experience of mine is that I've been seeing parents lash out at teachers, for example, teachers. And, I wrote a part of that in my blog for Blog 53 because a lot of the parents are doing this kind of stuff in front of the kids. So when you really think about it from a behavioral perspective, where are we and how are we teaching our children to express their aggression? Well, they're learning it from situations like that, from parents who are lashing out at teachers in front of the kids. I had a situation at a restaurant yesterday, and I was so internally angry. I was fuming. It takes a whole lot to get me angry, and I'm still thinking about it, just talking to you all about it. And so instead of making a scene, I pulled the guy to the side. And then I was talking to him really low, about as low as I'm talking to all of you. For one, I hate scenes, but that's another issue. And so I didn't want to embarrass him or anything like that. And I'm really conscious of doing those things. And do you know, he started getting loud with me. And people started looking, and I said to him, I said, hey, I pulled you to the side. I pulled you to the side so that I wouldn't get loud with you, you wouldn't get loud with me, and no one could hear our conversation. So why are you getting loud with me? And he said, well, I don't know what you want me to do. And I'm not getting loud. I said, you're getting loud. And this is me being very calm, which actually calmed him. And I'm the consumer. You go figure that one out. And it reminded me of how, in that moment, if my kids are with me, how they would have observed me handle a situation when I was angry. It's not that I didn't express myself or get my point across, because I'm always going to do that, but it is a matter of how you handle the situation. And so I've seen more parents handle or try to handle teachers by being angry without just cause to be angry, just disrespecting teachers in front of these kids. So then when the teachers, they do something and the kids don't like it, well, how do you think the kids will react? And my son was telling me about something today, and I said, that's exactly what I'm talking about on my blog. There should never be a reason for a kindergartner, for example, to go curse out a teacher. They don't know that kind of language unless they're taught. And so I tell, you know, parents all the time, you are raising adults. You are not raising kids. These kids will grow up and leave you. And if you do not train them how to be emotional the right way, society will teach them, right? And so everything that I have been trained to do with kids stems from behaviorism. So I am a behaviorist. I believe that behaviors are learned. We learn to react in anger. We learn to suppress in anger. We learn how to be emotional from our caregivers. And so we do a disservice to children when we teach them inappropriate ways to manage their anger and their aggression. We really do. And we need to teach them how to be healthy in those emotions. So the minute you go up to the school in anger and you go curse the teachers out, your kids learn that stuff from you. And then when they become angry adults, they tend to teach those behaviors to their own children, and the cycle continues. So we're just raising a whole bunch of angry folks, right? And some people think in anger that that's the best way that they can get what they want, which is manipulation at its finest. So I saw that a couple of times when I wrote this blog, and I had to tell you, it really got to me because when the parents go out of the school, the kids stay with the staff, and the staff have to deal with your little angry kids. And then when you get phone calls home, what happens? You get upset because the school keeps calling you. Well, they're calling you because of the behavior that you displayed towards your kid, and then your kid came to school and did it to the staff, and then that stuff is not allowed in school. So it's not the school's fault, it's yours. So that's the kind of stuff that I was seeing in the schools last year when I wrote this blog. And there were a couple of times I wanted to say, how dare you get mad at the school staff when you're just as angry as your kid? Look at how you speak to the staff, and all they want to do is help you and your kid. How do you overcome anger? Admit that you're angry and get some help for it. It interferes in your daily life, your kids' lives. You know, it tears people apart being that angry. We make rash and irrational decisions when we're that angry. You have to have a not necessarily behaviorist, but a therapist who specializes in anger management for yourself and your kids. A lot of times this is parent training, and there aren't enough parenting classes. Anger is developed and reinforced by caregivers, so parents and other caregivers. And so a very important component that is missing quite often when it comes to anger management is including parent training, and parents should always be involved in the anger management that their kids are getting, because it's a family system. It's a family system. And so those type of skills that the kids are learning in order to manage their behavior, the parents have to be taught how to parent those kind of kids to try to decrease this kind of anger. So make sure that they specialize in anger management, and that you are well matched with that mental health professional, and that there are parenting classes included in that therapy. What I don't want you all to do is to give up on your kids. Early intervention, I highly recommend it. I've seen lately some angry little 5-year-olds. Early intervention matters. Remember that. Behaviors do improve over time. So, for example, with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the hyperactivity gets better as kids get older. The inattentiveness will probably remain. And so, you want to make sure that for all behaviors, including, hyperactive kids, you want to get early intervention. And sometimes that includes your kids, your early childhood kids, being identified when they're 3 years old, and getting, the type of help that they need through education plans to improve their academic skills and their behavioral skills. And there's nothing wrong with that. I highly recommend early intervention. Oh, guys, let me turn off my heater. Um, Sorry, I was just sitting here getting hot. I have a space heater on. I had to turn it off. The other thing is cognitive behavioral training or therapy. I'm sorry, cognitive behavioral therapy, and we call it CBT, for angry kids and also adults. It has been empirically validated, meaning that it's been researched and proven to be effective for treating many types of symptoms of mental illness, but definitely disruptive behavior patterns. So think about that as well. And let me think. I'm also a fan of another type of therapy, and I actually recommended it today. And it's called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. And I'm a huge fan of it. I'm actually wanting to become certified in DBT myself. I just don't have time to do it yet. But it is a treatment that I recommend for your more difficult disorders, um, more not psychiatric, psychotic disorders, and also some of your personality disorders. But what I think research is finding or found with DBT is that it's also really good for the kids that you guys, and I'm talking to mental health professionals right now, and also some parents that you have within your care who are not, whose behaviors are not improving with traditional talking therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, or anger management. This is for kids who might be on their way to psychiatric hospitals to attend school or residential treatment centers. So, DBT is highly effective for treating those type of cases as well. And so, I highly recommend that. Highly recommend it. If you have completely, can't find the right treatment for your kid or the cognitive behavioral therapy that you are doing with a child under your care right now. If it's not working, find a professional or a hospital who has dialectical behavior therapy groups, do the group, and then also do the individual therapy. You'll see a difference. Now, how did this blog correlate with nebulous children or children who can see ghosts? It is because child L, who is a very angry child, I found out later was also a nebulous child from the parent who had no idea. The parent had no idea that I'm on the air talking about my previous experiences with working with children who could see ghosts. None. A lot of people just don't know me in the area, and so they don't have a clue about my name, which means that when they first meet me, they have no clue that I do this stuff or talk to you guys about this stuff. So, just out of the blue, because this parent was concerned about the mental health of child L, said that this kid could see ghosts and told me about it. And then I actually talked to child L, and yes, child L can see ghosts and saw ghosts for his or her entire life. So there is a correlation between this kid being angry and also seeing ghosts. And that's why I brought it up. Now, this is not the first kid that was in my care who was both angry but could also see ghosts. So there actually might be a correlation if I was conducting research in this, which I'm not. These are just my experiences. So we'll see. I mean, later on, as I get older, I might want to do some research. I don't know, but I welcome your opinion about it. I do think there was some correlation. I don't know how yet, but um, I think over the years, I've worked with enough of these kids and dealt with enough angry kids and enough angry kids who have been able to see ghosts that there's something to it. I just don't know what it is. And what I mean by that is simply, I don't know if what they can see is so dark that it impacts them or manipulates them or talks to them and makes them do these negative things or feel this way. Child L was probably one of the angriest kids I've met in my career. but for some reason was never angry toward me. So I'll let you figure that one out. Now I realized I went through, believe it or not, I went through every last blog that I've written and wrote the titles out. And because what I was doing is checking to see if I wrote up Child L yet. And I'm also trying to reorganize my website, and it's really hard. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to reorganize it, but I did pull out October ghost stories because those are really popular. And so I put those on a separate page on my webpage so that you can access them easier because October is coming up and I have more stories. I share them for every October. And so I don't know if I'm going to be able to reorganize it. It's so much at this point. But my broader position is I don't think I told you all about Child L because I looked. So, Child L is a very interesting kid. So, I am going to write up my story about Child L for you this week and post it between Friday and Sunday of this weekend. So, watch out because that one's coming, and that's actually a little bit scary too, but you'll understand why this weekend. So let's go up to blog 54. I should have said blog 54 for Halloween, but I didn't. Okay, so here's the setup about blog 54. Sometimes I just get the inspiration when I least expect it. And that's why I'm so excited about this one because I think I had writer's block and I kept thinking, what am I going to write about? And then I was talking to one of the kids, and one of the kids said to me, after talking about this kid's experience with seeing ghosts, has said to me, I saw the initials of the demon. And I said, what? I remember I was like, what? And this kid said, yeah, the initials. And ding, 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 ding. I got more information about it from this kid, but I immediately had an aha moment. Immediately. And I was like, I remember this experience, what a pastor told me, and what I had to read about it. And it was like, bam, I know what I'm writing. So when I was talking to this kid, when I had my aha moment, the initials was a first for me, right? Names was a first for me because this kid actually got the name too. But not hearing about it. So I never had a kid tell me a name or initials of a demon that was shown, but I did hear about why it's important to know the initials or the names from my former pastor. Yeah, I remember that because let me tell you, this is a pastor who talked to me about what I needed to read in order to be able to work with these children. And so I remember this day like it was yesterday, which is why I got quiet. The reason that you can, first of all, this is the pastor that had me read the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. And so all of this ties together because this pastor told me that learning their names is important. And he said it's important because you can call them out by their name and make them leave. And they don't like that. They don't like you to know anything about them. They don't like you to know how to get rid of them. They run in darkness. They don't like you to figure them out. And so they hate humans. And so anything you can find out about them like that, they don't like it. And so when you find out their names, you can get rid of them by calling their names out. They disappear, blah, 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 blah. But he also told me that they all have tasks to do because they hate humans. And so they're here to destroy us. So whether it is addictions, so drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or sexual promiscuity, or harming other people, um, so murders and suicide, and those are their different tasks. And so I remember he said a lot of people don't see it that way because they don't understand that those things are bad choices based in darkness. But I remember he said when you start reading the Screw Tape Letters, you'll be able to understand Satan better, because in that book, I'm trying not to give too much away. Satan's adversaries take you on a journey of how they think. And I was like, whoa, that's going to be deep. So that's a little bit of the background um, about why I wrote this blog. But I had never had a kid actually tell me that they saw initials. But this kid did. And so I had to put a cookie in my mouth because I'm kind of like ruminating on this a lot because this is really important. And it was an important lesson to me. And I'm also reflecting and reminiscing about the conversation I had with the pastor. So I was like, let me put a little gluten-free cookie in my mouth here. um, when this kid told me that, I think I was shocked for a minute because, like I just explained with putting the cookie in my mouth, it made me remember everything that I was taught. And I actually can still, as I talk about it, I can still see the pastor and I talking about it. And when he introduced the Screw Tape Letters to me, and also some of the passages in that book, and why it was important to read, what I learned from it. So I'm like sitting here reminiscing a lot and about it. And that's how I felt when this kid told me the initials, because I asked, what are the initials? When this kid told me the initials, and I said, wow, I wonder what that stands for, you know. And so I started telling this kid about the things that I learned from the pastor. And I was very honest about how I hadn't experienced anyone to actually tell me, the initials. And that's probably why I was so weird at that moment to the kid, because I had explained, hey, this is what I learned. And I never had this happen to me before. So the more that we talked, this kid was able to give me a physical description of this entity that was seen. And this kid was an older kid, so it was very much in tune with what it was, and that it was a dark angel. But of course, I told you guys the older kids just flat out say demons. And so this kid said it was dark and it was scary. And he or she didn't feel like they were threatened or going to be harmed or anything by it, but it was there. And it stared at him or her and then just walked away. Um, but that there are numerous paranormal activities and experiences in the family home. So this is a kid who has numerous sightings in his or her house like this. Um, and together with the siblings, because there was more than one, they all can see this stuff, including the parents. And so I was able to kind of confirm this story with the parents, but also with the siblings as well. So they experience this probably daily in their home. Um, they are also very afraid to go into different parts of their home after this. And so, but the good news and what I really like about this story is that these kids can go directly to their parents about these things after they happen. And a lot of kids can't do that, but these kids can. They will go right over to their parents and say, hey, I saw this, and this in the building, or hey, I saw the initials of, this dark angel, or, I'm afraid because I don't want to go in the basement because I think something's down there. And so these parents were very supportive and very much into doing what they needed to do to make their kids comfortable in the house. So, from burning sage to saying prayers to putting Bibles in the rooms to, casting out demons, whatever they need to do, these parents were on board and they do it. But they also talk about their experiences as well with seeing ghosts very easily, and talked about it very easily with me. And so it's not all in reality, right? Let's talk about reality. Sometimes we see ghost shows and we're like, man, if that was our house, we go, and man, we do this and we do that. And the truth of the matter is very simple. It is not that easy for people to pack up and move. When we want to move, we all hate it. I know I do. I know you all hate moving too. So when you think about it, these parents were like, look, these things are not, this is a very strong couple. I want you to know. And so they're like, their position is, hey, we're not moving. This is too hard. What we're going to do is stay here and use the tools that we know to bless our house and to get rid of these things. And so that's actually what they're doing. They are, once we start talking about it, they decided to pray over their house and bless the house and, do all kinds of things. So I hadn't seen this child after that conversation about the initials for quite a few weeks. And so when I finally did run into this kid, I said, hey, I got to ask you, after your parents did everything they needed to in the home, what's it like over there? You guys okay? And this kid said, they haven't been back. And I said, are you talking about ghosts? Because I wanted to be clear. And he was, yeah, they haven't been back. My parents, you know, cleansed the house, cleansed us. And they cleansed the floor and the animals. They did everything. They were like, we're not moving out of our house. So I said, yeah, they didn't come back. This kid said, no. So, of course, I was like, well, I told you they're not going to come back. And, you know, um, do you see them at school and all of that stuff? And so this kid was like, yeah, I do see him at school. And the siblings see him. I said, well, we can't cleanse the school without a whole bunch of parents hollering at us about separating church and state, and that's fine because that's their opinion. But you can always do these things for yourself to make sure, you feel safe and protected at school from a spiritual standpoint, because you are one of the kids who can actually see ghosts. And this kid's like, yeah. And I can tell when some of them are not of God. So he said, I can tell that they are of, they're God's angels. And I said, that's right. And we talked about it and talked about it. So one of the things that I asked was, did the dark angel with the initials come back? And this kid said, no, no, no. And so sometimes I will ask kids direct questions like, all right, when you come to my office, let's see what's in there. And so I think maybe a couple days later, this kid knocked on the door and said, nope, all's clear. And I said, it better be clear. So, that was a really good experience for me to have. Sometimes I feel like I know about things like that. I knew about the initials, but it's kind of buried so deep in my brain that it takes something to come out. But then when it does come out, then I go through a phase of being fascinated because then I'm like, okay, it really did come out. I learned about this 20 years ago. Okay, not quite 20 years ago, but something close to it. And then here it is. And then I look around like, wow, my pastor was right. I should actually call that pastor and tell him, hey, guess what I found out? He would probably like to hear that. So that's what happened with that particular kid. Now, one of the things that this family learned was how to better control the things that these kids see, right? So this parent that I talked to, because I had to talk to this parent a couple of times, had said, yeah, now I know what to do, and I'm very proactive, and I'm protecting my home, and, I'm protecting our family. My husband's protecting the family. My husband can see ghosts too. We've seen it. We're doing things, I'm nervous about what these things can do to my kids and also other people's kids with regard to the manipulation. So kudos to these parents, because let me tell you, even if they didn't believe their kids, I mean, it's easy for them to believe them because they actually see ghosts too. But even if they didn't, they took the time to really listen, and at least they made their kids think that they believed them and that they were going to support them. And I always say when I write these blogs and talk on this podcast, what? That's all the kids need sometimes. Just make them feel like you support them. Just make them feel like you support them so that they can continue to talk to you, and they can continue to tell you these things because you want to know, you know, and you want to help them. And the best way to help them is to gather all the information that you can from them so that you can make a difference to them. And that's what these parents did. And I was really happy. I was giving these parents all kinds of high fives because I just think that it was awesome and they're awesome. So, you know, it was good. I think next week I'm going to tell you more about being the parents of nebulous children, which is going to still be in the same blog. And then I'm going to talk to you more about the book I read by C.S. Lewis, The Screwtape Letters. If you have time, get that book and read it before next week. And you can. It is fascinating, but let me warn you. One of the things the pastor said to me was, when you get the book, you're going to get sleepy. And he said, I want you to fight it. And I want you to fight it because that's what Satan does, because he doesn't want you or anybody else to know about him that way. And that's exactly what that book does. And I kid you not. What I mean is that's exactly what the book does. It does give you some insight. But he was right, because I got sleepy as soon as I started reading it. So it actually took me a little bit longer to read it than it typically would, because every single time I was sleepy. Every single time. Go outside, sleepy. Go into bed, sleepy. Get out of the bed because you're getting sleepy. And I was like, okay, Satan just really doesn't want me to know. Now, let me say this too. Some of you are like, I'm not going to read that because it's about Satan. It is not about Satan in that way. It is more of a lesson learned and teachings. I'm trying not to give the book away. Besides that, there's no need in being afraid. You should know about this stuff, especially those of you who believe in God, because if you believe in God, then you believe freaking Satan is real. So go for it. Read it. It's good education, and it'll help you understand, for example, why the pastor told me that drug addiction or any addiction is demonic, or demonic forces make people believe that that's the way to deal with those things. So read it. So we'll talk more about that next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Hey, I hope you guys have a good night and have a good rest of the week. The weekend is coming. TTYL.